Yeah, under new business. You think we'd do it first, so everything that happens after that be official, but.
Well, evidently.
I didn't know if you was gonna call it to order, and then we was gonna do
Hang
it.
with that prior to tonight is not on the text.
Oh, are we good? Y'all ready? The February 2024 meeting of the Alamance County Planning Board will come to order. You got the roll.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. We have 7 present, which is enough to constitute a quorum.
Okay, all right. Has everybody had a chance to read the minutes from the last meeting?
Yes, sir.
Is any questions about them? Anything that reached out to anybody?
Move to approve. Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, great. Has anybody signed up to say anything?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we don't have anything to respond to. Well, guess what? We're there.
Good thing I have a commissioner's here.
Right. Okay. I'm guessing everybody sees in front of you an oath form. This 160 general statute says we're supposed to be sworn in. I think we've all been sworn at, so now we're gonna make it official. And since one of our members, Mr. Bear, is the mayor of Ossipee, he's qualified to swear us in. So. Yeah.
I state your name, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and maintain the Constitution and laws of the United States.
I, Rodney Chief, do solemnly swear that I will support and
Maintain the Constitution and laws of the United States.
And the Constitution and laws of North Carolina, not inconsistent herewith.
And the Constitution and laws of North Carolina, not inconsistent therewith.
And that I will faithfully discharge my duties, my office as planning board member, so help me God.
And I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office as a planning board member, so help me God.
Now, this time in D minor.
That's good, good.
Now, if y'all sign them and hand them this way, I'll sign.
If you'll sign them and hand them to me, I'll make sure that they are on file with the clerk as state law requires.
Okay. Mr. Barrett, thank you. So while he's wrapping that up, now we're updating bylaws and meeting procedures. I'll just turn it over to you and you can talk about this a little
Yes,
bit.
sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we had touched on this briefly at the tail end of last meeting about if it might be worth it to take a look at the bylaws and procedures and just kind of update them based on preference, based on, changing in planning board construction and all the rest. So I have really only marked up a couple, maybe 2 or 3 items here that I wanted to bring to the board's attention. On the first page there under section 1.6, this is something I actually noticed early on in taking the job with item 6 and item 7 is that in terms of the order of proceedings, you actually have new business before old business. To me, that seems a little bit out of order, and most of the time it's probably not going to be an issue. But tonight, for example, we're going to take a look at hypothetical Article 2 changes, and then we will, you might say, rewind the clock to then go back to old business and then take a look again at Article 1 changes, which we discussed at the last meeting. So it's a little bit of the way that it's required to be laid out, kind of puts the cart before the horse, you might say, or just kind of inverts the order there, which could be just kind of inefficient. The other items under section 4, 4.1 there, it would really just be kind of cleaning up the language to comply with, current realities. So the first sentence there says that the member shall be appointed in accordance with the Alamance County Planning Ordinance. Well, that document no longer exists. That document was made obsolete by the Unified Development Ordinance. And then the very next sentence there says that it shall be composed of 13 citizens of the county, and obviously, that the change happened recently there to switch that from 13 to 9. So just kind of a formality maybe there, but, you know, obviously the change would just, if you guys wanted to undertake those changes, it would just make it uniform with what's existing now with the UDO. The only other thing I had a question about was, possibly the meeting time. So our meeting time is 7 o'clock, and I wasn't sure if that time still suited everyone, or if there might be a preference to move it up to 6 or 6:30, or leave it how it is. That's certainly up to the discretion of the board.
I'm fine with 7 o'clock, just the way it is, there is some time coming from, you know, the county, work, right? And if I don't get out until 5:30, 6 o'clock, that puts me out here, right? That's personal. I mean, that's just work schedule. I'm sure a lot of other people maybe work till 5 o'clock too, or whatever. Trying to get somewhere to 6 o'clock would be kind of, in my opinion.
And also it's seasonal. In other words, this time of year, 6 or 6:30 would be a little more realistic than May through October for some of us. But that's what we have these discussions about.
Well, I'd be in favor of leaving it at 7.
Me too.
Okay.
Yeah, I would.
Um,
Especially when it gets to the summertime.
Whatever.
Well, we've got a generic consensus here of leaving it to 7. Without making a motion or vote, you want to push it any more now?
I don't think that there's any, if there's no desire to change it, I don't think there's any need for a motion at all. I think you just move on. If you guys were interested in debating any of the other items that I brought up, or, you know, if you see the need for any kind of tweaks, then we can certainly debate those as well.
I am absolutely in favor under 1.6 of swapping 6 and 7. I think old business should come before new business.
Yeah, it's almost like you just, if you have anything left over from a previous meeting, you dispense with that
that's
first, and then
exactly
you
right.
move on to the new items.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most important item here that I noted.
Yeah, and certainly,
But 9 of us probably ain't no need debating 13 and 9.
that's right. And
You
under
just-
Article 4,
Clean that language.
yeah, that's
Change. the
not doing
planning
that would be
ordinance.
stupid, because other than our control caused this, so we just need to get in compliance.
And that was in, section 4, you said?
4.1, change the Alamance County Plan Ordinance to the Unified Development Ordinance,
Yeah,
and then change the 13 to 9.
Yeah.
right. Yeah, so if you guys wanted to, you could go ahead and make that official motion. If you wanted to instruct me to make those changes and then bring it back to the March meeting, we could handle it that way. You got a few options here on how you might want to address that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I
sir.
make a motion, we, appoint the planning director to make those changes in 4.1 to, the UDO, to change that language and to change the number of 13 to 9.
Okay. And in 1.6, swap 6 and 7.
Yeah, and 1.6, change item 6 to number 7 and 7 to number 6.
Okay.
Second.
All right. So we got a motion and a second. Any discussion on this? All in favor?
We're
Aye.
doing this now as opposed to come back next month, is that correct?
Well, this is not part of the reviewing of that.
Okay.
This is separate from the,
No, I mean, as far as this right here, is this, we authorize him to make these changes now?
Yeah, you can't
Yeah.
vote right now to amend your rules of procedure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're doing.
Yeah, that's what I was
Okay.
hoping we were doing.
Okay,
all right. So now that he's brought this up, let's make sure we're clear. One of the things we're getting ready to look at this, clarifying the UDO.
Article 2.
Yeah, and we're working on that procedure. And when we get through the whole thing, we're gonna make one motion on that. But this right here is not that. This is a procedural
Right.
matter.
That's
Wow.
correct.
So-
Yes, sir.
We're voting to change the bylaw. Right. Okay.
And that's all, just these 2 points, 1.6 and 4.1. Okay,
Correct.
all right,
Yeah, that's the motion.
all right. Motion second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. You got you got 2/3, so.
Hey, I wasn't hung up on 7. I just wanted to
Okay.
take the temperature of the board and see
Yeah.
if there was any interest there.
All right, well, there we go. All right, so now we're looking at Article 2 on it. But like we just said, I'm gonna administratively do this. Did anybody have a chance to read through Article 1 and find anything else they want to talk about? Okay. I was counting on that, so, but is it all right with you if I swap this and?
I think that's perfectly fine. I think if you wanted to be real proper about it, you could entertain a motion to amend the agenda and switch them out, old business, new business. Or at least those items, but I think unless the county attorney sees any big problem with it, I think it's fine. No issue with that.
Okay, all right. My administrative call stands. Mr. Vine?
Under, 1.2, section B, I would like to recommend that we add a number 3 and put in there to protect and preserve farmland.
I thought, just, Paul, one of our documents, I don't really, I've got the 2022 land development plan. I thought there was language that would back that up if we added it to the UDO, that was one of the concerns from the land development plan that we had, passed back in, 2020.
I read through that last night, Bill. I thought I saw that there too, but
Yeah.
I don't know where I saw it at.
Yeah, I don't know if it was like in the strategic plan. I mean, right here, one of the strategic plan action pillars, as they have it, preserving agriculture. It's like first one, world-class education, public and safety, smart growth and development, government accountability and resource management, which is probably another discussion for another day, another meeting, but preserving agriculture is something I think we probably.
It's a purpose part of the purpose of this article.
What were you wanting to change to add in there? Henry?
Added number 3 to protect and preserve farmland.
So that'll be section 1.2, purpose,
Yeah,
item B, and a new Roman numeral 3,
correct.
or not Roman numeral, but,
Number 3.
lowercase.
Yeah.
3.
Do I need to make it a form of motion or? Okay,
I don't think so, because we just gonna do one motion on this thing.
right.
That's right. Yeah. So, really, I think in order to address it, the board, unless there's an objection, would just be instructing me to make that change and make it part of the final presentation.
Okay, so let's do this like we talked about. Does everybody understand what Henry has said? So we're gonna add that point in there. Is everybody in agreement with it? We're doing a consensus here.
So if it's added in there, then when it comes back around to us for final approval, if anything that's added in this point or anything in the future, we could then have a chance to have thought about it and go back to it and readdress that
Yes, sir.
questions and
That's
make
exactly
amendments at
You
that point
got it.
before final approval.
Mhm.
Exactly right.
Okay.
That's exactly right.
All right.
All right. You
So
all right with this?
I just want to make sure I'm
Okay.
precise on the wording there too. You said to protect and preserve farmland.
That's right.
I don't. Is that the appropriate place for that? I mean, this is the purpose and the intent of the planning board. And if you put that language in there, does that mean that's gonna be one of the pillars of you reviewing projects and reviewing things? Or is that more for the strategic planning? Or strategic, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think I would say to a degree it's both. I don't know that it would change any particular aspect of review when a subdivision comes our way or a development proposal comes our way or anything like that. And if we get into the business of amending the comprehensive plan or the land development plan or tweaking it or whatever, and that goal is lined up with the goal of preserving and protecting farmland in the comprehensive plan, then obviously you've got uniformity there, which is fine and actually ideal. Ideally, you want your unified development ordinance to be very much in harmony with your comprehensive land use plan. So that, I think your question on, is that specifically the right place for that, is a good one, because that subsection kind of talks about historic districts and landmarks.
Mhm.
Yeah, so maybe it would be best just to add item C as opposed to B3.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to the idea. I'm just saying, where's the proper place? In the document.
Because that is part of-
That's what I was reading. I mean, I agree with Henry, but it looks like everything in that section talks about historical property, cultural property, and things such as landmarks and stuff.
Yeah, and
Make it C instead of.
yeah, and if you notice too, so if you go down just a little bit to the end of 1.3, this was actually added in as a draft item. So, item E, and all the underlining there means it would be new. And I'll just read it for you. So quote, this
Yeah,
ordinance
that
shall,
does talk about farming.
yeah, this ordinance shall in no way regulate, restrict, prohibit, or otherwise deter any use of property for a bona fide farm and its related uses, except that any use of such property for non-farm purposes shall be subject to the provisions of this ordinance or state law. So I added that in there intentionally because there was, when 160D was adopted, there was kind of special consideration given to zoning exemptions for bona fide farmland. So coming from a rural county, that's something I'm very keenly aware of, so I did make sure to add that in the last one. If the board doesn't feel that that addresses agricultural protection strongly enough, then I think we can certainly address it in a different way. But I wanted to make sure to add that in the last round.
You know, I think that pretty much says it there. E talks about no way regulate, restrict, prohibit, or deter the use of farmland for farming.
But I will say, I think it's an excellent point because again, if we get into tweaking the comprehensive plan in the future, making that a goal and a pillar, if that's the desire, is a good thing to keep in mind.
Ready for number 2?
So we're
Well,
on number one.
let's wrap up with one first.
Okay, I've already, okay.
Okay, so do we have a consensus here that we want this to be E? Or we want to leave it as little 3? Or do we feel like it's already been addressed and we don't need it at all?
I think E already addresses it.
Yeah, I think so too.
Are you good with that, Henry?
Well, I just like the idea of it being under the purpose.
Yeah, I do.
I mean,
As a C.
and we can do it as a C. I just, as you read this general, why this is here and why it's general and this general purpose. I like the idea of that being said.
I'm not sure we can overstate it enough. So I'm kind of in agreement.
Change it to
with-
C.
Yeah, if you want to put it in there, C or.
But, and I kind of think of it this way, so in these sections, it's almost like a question being asked. What is, in 1.2, what is the purpose of this document? And this document
Right.
being the entire unified development ordinance. And legally, 1.2 there just kind of establishes the broad legal purpose for the document. The next section there in applicability is to what criteria of development do these regulations apply to? Right. So maybe I'm getting a little too far in the weeds there, but that's kind of how I thought about it when I added item E in there.
I like the weeds. I like getting in the weeds.
That's what we're here for, right?
That's exactly right.
Right.
Okay,
C.
C. All right, C.
So 1.2 C. Okay, now, so the question would be, do you want to just swap out the language that's in E there that was added, or do you want us to come up with something new? And I'll tell you that the language of E is probably borrowed verbatim from 160D-905.
I think your language is
I
fine.
think it's 905, which is the agricultural exemption.
Yeah,
I like the way it's written.
I just had a question on that part too. Should we, have have in there all state regs to be in this as well. Should that regulation, should that be in this as well?
Yeah, and I think that's referenced.
Authority, 1.4 authority.
That's right. Yeah, and authority is kind of broken out into different sections, but I think it's,
We got a state law, I just wondered if it should be, I guess what I was saying is there should be state regulations instead of state law, or is state law fine?
and what section are you speaking about specifically?
Yeah, you said E under 1.3.
Yeah.
That's what. That was a question that I wrote down. Should we have that in there?
One
Says
sixty
all
D
state regulations.
is 160D, is it considered a regulation or is it considered a law?
It's a general statute.
General statute?
Yeah, so anytime we refer to state law, that is state law, we should just call it general statute.
Okay. Yeah, that is general.
That's fine. I mean,
Would it be wrong to put law/statute?
It wouldn't be wrong. It's just less precise.
If you
Okay.
put general statute, it covers it,
Okay.
period. Is that everything you want?
You good with that? Okay.
That's 93.
I had
I'm
no-
trying to find basically this text or verbatim in here. It's typically, that's what I do, is I just copy it verbatim from 160D. Or if it says zoning, I'll just take out zoning and put regulation. Sorry.
No.
Yeah, okay.
I was fine with everything else.
So, what's the final determination on that piece specifically?
Changing state law to general statute.
Okay, they're leaving it in that section.
Yeah, but
Changing
just
state law
change
to
the word to
statute.
general statutes instead of
Okay,
state law.
okay.
Isn't that correct? Is that right?
That sounds right to me.
Okay.
We good? All right, you had something else?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just got a question on section 1.4.
Mhm.
D. I just, wanted to know, should, Alamance County Planning be in here, in this section, in this?
1.4 subsection D,
Yeah.
for farmland preservation standards.
Uh-huh. You know, cause we do have farm, we do have farmland preservation, in the county set up.
Oh, the preservation elements.
Yeah, that just popped in my mind. What do you think, Bob? Because you know what I'm talking about.
Well, I don't think that applies to this.
You know,
Huh? That's a vehicle for which people can
yeah,
get funds to help preserve farmland. Or they can put land in it to be used for farmland.
Yeah, it kind of describes out there, the standards through the general statutes and
Mhm.
152.
I didn't notice the word in there about
Well, I think that's
the
the,
farm preservation plan, that's in Alamance County. I didn't know if that was something that would be, and it may not be necessary. That was a question I just.
Well, that's the way you find out is ask the question, so that's fine.
So is your question about the farmland preservation ordinance
Yeah,
in the county?
yeah, and I didn't know if that was something that needed to be in that section or not, you know.
So
It's
the,
farmland preservation standards and
if you look at the next section there, 1.6. To my knowledge, and obviously this is before my time, but to my knowledge, all of those individual ordinances listed were essentially made obsolete and combined into one document, and that document is the Unified Development Ordinance. One of the ordinances not listed there is the Farmland Preservation Ordinance. And I would assume that is because the way that Alamance County is organized is that the planning department does not manage the Farmland Preservation Ordinance. Brian, you can help me with this. It's managed by the
Voluntary Agricultural District.
Yeah.
I think that ordinance provides a mechanism to conserve farmlands, and I don't think it has any authority to confer upon the planning board.
Yeah,
I
and-
don't think it would be appropriate to list it in the authority.
and the planning department is not responsible for enforcing it. That's correct. Yeah.
I think that's right, too. That's the preservation elements
Right.
funding vehicle
And it was recently.
that they work through soil and water and they handle the applications.
Right.
And then I believe this is referencing the agency within the state government that also matches funds and creates the vehicle to where that all gets accomplished. Is that right, Brian?
Yeah, I think that's right. Two different things. There's voluntary ag district.
Right.
And there's authority for that, and then there's preservation elements authority. But both of those, I don't think have any authority to confer here. I don't think are relevant in that sense.
yeah.
Did you hear that, Henry? They don't, that's a different animal
Okay.
altogether. So I think this is okay the way it is.
All right.
Anything else?
I just got a question.
Now it's time.
On E, I just, in reading through where, you know, on the, what it says, the Alamance County Commissioners and the ordinance pursuant into the police powers. It's got everything listed in this thing. I just wanted to know, should, the HIDO be listed in this group?
Where you at, Henry?
E, under 1.4,
1, 4, okay, thank you.
we got a little bit.
It's really the solar energy.
Yeah,
I don't know that solar energy systems fall under HIDO.
They don't.
yeah, it's a
They're
separate
a
ordinance.
separate
It's a
ordinance.
separate ordinance,
Yeah, it's a
separate
separate-
section of the ordinance now.
Solar stands alone
Yeah,
outside of the HIDO. Because they're not even considered heavy industrial.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's a,
I mean, Mr. Vines, to your point, that is the same authority that allows for the HIDO to exist. So if we think we need to break that out somewhere to talk about an enabling statute for other police power regulations like the HIDO, it could go somewhere else as well.
okay. Well, we can look at that then. I just seen the part about the police and then I, you know, just felt like that highly ought to be in the policing section. Whatever.
Yeah, it strikes me as illogical to have some of those cited in the solar energy system standards.
Right. I guess the police part of what just kind of caught my attention that we need to make sure that it said we needed to be sure we police it out of the rule, you know.
To me, it seems as though we might have mislabeled that. And that, of course, I mean, again, those are all the statutes that do regulate our authority to police solar energy systems, but I don't know that that's the right heading for that subsection.
For that section.
Right.
Yeah, because you already have 6.8 is a solar energy stuff.
Yeah, that's what-
Standards, that's kind of.
I guess that's,
In the high.
I guess I just kind
But,
of erased the solar energy out of my head. And if you're going, I just was thinking, if you're gonna say solar energy, why would you not say the HIDO? So what do you think maybe we should just strike the solar energy
Honestly, I think we should strike solar energy system standards and just put other regulating authority and then combine subsections E and F.
Yeah, because you already got solar energy, 6.8 covers that already.
Right. I think those two should be one paragraph and it should be other enabling authority.
Yeah, it does, but this section is designed to tell the reader where does the county get its authority to do certain, to enact certain regulations and govern certain activities.
Okay.
So your thought was to strike out solar energy systems.
Put other enabling authority, combine sections E and F. And then if you need to cite in the solar energy section, you cite back to this 1.4 E and say that's the authority.
All right. That's good.
Just my suggestion.
That's weeds, Rodney, that's weeds,
Is that what that is?
that's weeds. We're pulling all the bad weeds.
And you gotta have some of them, is my understanding.
Yes.
That's good. It's good to do that work now. All right.
Is that it, or you got one more?
Oh, I don't know if I got any further or not. I didn't know how many we was gonna do tonight. I read over most of them. I just got down to 1.9. I quit right there. We had to change, I think we already talked about on 1.8 about the old that Lee brought up, but language on section 1.8, we already talked about that.
All right,
Big question mark here. I don't know why. Let's see.
that's when she hollered in there and asked you if you wanted a ham sandwich or not. You just put a question mark down.
I put a question mark there is on this and on the planning board. The planning board shall have a maximum of 45 days from the date of the planning board meeting to make recommendations on the application. If recommendation is not made during the time of period, the application shall be forwarded to the Board of Commissioners without a recommendation from the planning board.
You got a question about that?
Yeah.
So if something comes in here and the decision of the board is to take no action on it, and 45 days goes by, then it goes to the commissioners like it was presented to us. And they find out that we're not making a recommendation to or not to, is here it is, you gotta make the decision. Ain't that generically what I,
Yes, sir. That's exactly right.
Yeah,
So,
okay,
But does that limit us to, say, for instance, that, that we met tonight? I'm just saying, we met tonight and somebody put the application in and for some reason we couldn't meet the next time. So that means we're out of it.
well, that would be one interpretation of it.
You know what,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying, about 45 days. It doesn't. Should it be 60 days to cover 2 meetings?
so
Yeah.
the coverage of 2 meetings would be roughly 30 days, right? Because if you meet today to undertake business, that's day 1.
Right.
And then you meet again in March to continue that business, that's roughly 30 days. I don't think that this would preclude you from continuing a hearing. And that is cut off by the 45-day window.
Yeah.
So for example, if there were a public hearing that began tonight and 60 people showed up and they all wanted to speak and it took 3 hours. And by the end of it, the chairman said, okay, I think we've been here long enough. Let's get a motion to continue this hearing to the March meeting. Then you continue, that 45-day clock does not keep ticking. It's paused. What this is designed to do is state law requires that if there's an amendment that comes before you, or there's another matter that ultimately goes before the commissioners, you have to review it and make a recommendation. So if an individual comes before you with an application or they want to amend the UDO, that their rights to due process, you might say, are preserved, and there's a bit of a clear path in the process where if, not that this would happen, but it just wouldn't get hung up with the planning board. There would be a process by which it continues to move through.
What if we, couldn't provide a quorum? How this, a quorum?
You say, thanks, tabling something, right?
It would
It would
be,
be automatically continued to the next
it would
meeting.
go to the next meeting.
So if you didn't take up the business because you didn't have a quorum, then the 45-day window would not
No.
begin. Yeah.
It doesn't
is that
start-
Right, would that be right?
It wouldn't start till you
Until you
actually take
that's
up
what
the
I
item.
Take up the
I
item.
think that's what I was trying to say was,
Yeah.
for some reason or another. We didn't have a quorum, we did meet, would it automatically just kick it on to the commissioners? Cause it's been 45 days since the application.
I think 3 covers 30 days of application. The 45 days is when we start to address
Yes, when you start discussion of an item.
Yeah, so item 3 is completed application shall be received at least 30 days prior to the planning board meeting, at which the planning board will first consider the proposed amendment.
Okay.
So when you actually begin considering the proposal, that's when the 45-day clock begins. But like I said, I don't think that would preclude you from continuing a hearing. So if you felt like the issue was not resolved, then you just make a motion to continue it to the next meeting. And I don't think that's nullified by the 45-day.
Okay, so we would, so in other words, we're in here discussing. And we just come to the determination that we need to get a little more information, or we need to do a little more research. I don't want us to have to make a hasty decision because it just says here, you gotta get it done in 45 days. Well, you're saying to me that we can do this by saying we're tabling it, and that takes that 45 days off.
Yeah, I'm not sure about tabling it. I think the
Whatever you
proper,
say.
I think the proper terminology would be vote to continue the hearing.
Vote,
Yeah.
vote to continue.
Yeah,
Okay.
so like a public hearing, for example, if the board were to conduct a public hearing, we have to get an ad in the newspaper. We've got to make sure that there's proper notice to the public. There's all these procedures that go along with it. If that is discontinued, but you want to continue the hearing, you got to go back through the whole process of newspaper advertisements and all the rest. If during the meeting you make a motion and it is agreed to simply continue it to the next regular meeting, then all that goes away. You're protected because you have made a motion in public session to
Right.
continue it to the next meeting. And I think the same would apply here.
Y'all good with that?
Mhm.
Long story short,
But it's a great question.
that's right. The 45-day window protects the citizen,
I understand that part, yeah.
but it is not a hard, fast 45 days.
Okay.
In other words, we're not just gonna count off, say 34, 43, 44, 45.
Mhm.
I got a 5-year-old who's counting from 37 to 50 in 4 steps, and I can't count now. But no, we're 45 days and it's done. That's not the way this reads. It's what it looks like, but that's not what it's saying. I'd say that about right.
Yeah, I think that's a good interpretation.
Well,
Okay.
I appreciate y'all, 'cause I mean, I'm still learning.
Me too, 37, 38, 39, 50.
And you could too, maybe rare that this would happen, but let's say that you consider an item and then you bring it back up again at the next meeting and you adjourn without really addressing it. But you find yourself in a situation where you want to address it before that 45-day ends. You could then call a special meeting.
Right.
And there are legal provisions that govern the process of calling a special meeting.
That answered all your questions.
Yeah, I mean, as long as we all know something, all this is new. That hopefully this is gonna help this gentleman do his job.
That's the hope. Now, does anybody else have any questions, or has Henry asked them all?
Sorry about that.
The commissioners met the other day and the question was asked, do you have any questions? And the guy's response was, well, he's already asked them all. So no, I don't. So if Henry's asked all the questions, good for him. All right. So do we have kind of a consensus on Article 1?
Yes.
Okay, you,
Yeah, I think I understand all the requested changes. My only question would be, do you want me to go ahead and make those changes and then we can bring this back on the agenda for March? Or do you want me to make those changes and then they're part of the final package?
Part of the final.
This part of the final, right?
10-4.
Once we
Okay.
get the final package, we'll kind of do it.
We'll do it all again.
You, and if there's any heartburn at that one.
And the review doesn't have to be quick. You can take your time looking back through it. You know, we could get to that point, you go, now, wait a minute, it dawned on me in July that we ought to do this with Article 1,
hmm,
and that's perfectly fine.
it put another question mark in there.
So there's no timetable you're looking
Or a
at
mustard.
finalizing this necessarily.
No, I don't think there's any firm timetable. I don't see any reason to really, have any specific thing done by a certain date.
But if we come across something that we think needs to be changed right now, we can change it, right?
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
We did just a while ago in Article 2.
That's true. Yeah, that's exactly right.
9, 13.
That's exactly right. Yeah, what we're doing here with going piece by piece to review the UDO does not preclude you from making an amendment to the UDO and recommending an amendment and sending it up to the commissioners.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we're clear on 1, now we can move to 2, which is tonight's work.
About done it.
Yes, sir.
So are we following old business or are we moving on to new business? So there's another section there of old business.
Yeah.
That talks about lot size subcommittee.
Well, what we're gonna do is go back and we're gonna pick up the articles discussion so that we do all that together. And then when we're all clear, then we'll have a committee update.
Okay.
Cause I don't see no point in stopping where we are now to say that we've met. We're working on getting him up to speed with where we are. We're still gathering information. And unless something terrible comes up, we're gonna be able to make our presentation in next month for what we see. Although I just give the report.
Just so, just remember what you said.
I'm not gonna remember it. When we get ready for it, I'm gonna let the planning director give the report, cause, he was at the meeting and he knows. So,
We can't tell them that we're working on.
right, that's right. Okay, you wanna talk about Article 2?
Yes, sir.
I'm
Thank you,
happy to
Mr.
hush.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got a little preamble here that I wrote up, so I'll skip over most of it because we've already covered a good bit of it in the discussion. So I'll just note again that much like Article 1, the proposed changes or modifications for Article 2 follow the same format of underlining for new text and strike through for old text. And I will read a brief summary here of the changes section by section. It won't be detailed, it'll more or less just be a summary. And then obviously, if you have any questions or you're going to probe deeper after that, we can go as deep as you want. So first, just in general, I want to make note of a few things that apply to multiple sections. I think it's worth noting. The first is that the term North Carolina General Statute, we've decided on a uniform abbreviation for that, which would be N.C.GEN.STAT. So anytime you see that abbreviation, it's the same North Carolina General Statute. The term governing board has been more accurately replaced with Board of Commissioners. If you read through 160B, they use governing board a lot because the laws are equally applicable to town council, city council, Board of Aldermen, Board of Commissioners. For our purposes on the county level, our governing board authority is the county commission. So the uniform terminology there is going to be Board of Commissioners. And you also see a requirement for an oath of office for the different boards. This is something now that you guys have experience with. And that is simply a requirement of North Carolina General Statute 160B-309 for all appointed boards under the article. All right, so just going through these one by one. So in section 2.1, the language establishing the planning board have been reworded and simplified. And the term planner in charge has been changed to planning director. Otherwise, there is no change there. Similar change with Article 2.2. Section 2.2, the language establishing Historic Properties Commission has been reworded and simplified. And under the powers and duties section, statutory reference has been changed to accurately reflect state law. Section 2.3, the language establishing the Board of Adjustment has been reworded and simplified, otherwise no change. Section 2.4, there is an added requirement for planning staff to retain documents in keeping with North Carolina Public Records Law. We could get into this if you want. This is actually kind of pulled out of the flood zone area. I'm not sure why it was in there, but we pulled it out to be more generally applicable. And we also added a detailed section aimed at preventing administrative staff conflicts of interest as outlined in 160D-109C. Section 2.5, under the responsibilities as floodplain administrator, we amended various sections to cite the UDO's floodplain ordinance and not the obsolete floodplain ordinance. So as we talked about previously, the UDO rendered many ordinances obsolete and aggregated them all into one. Well, the reference here still reference sections of the old ordinance. So it would say, you know, as
Article 4, subsection.
as seen in, you know, section 5B, 5B no longer exists. So this is just made uniform with what appears later in the UDO. And then finally for section 2.6, this adds an itemized list of the types of developments which would come before the technical review committee. And also adds a provision by which the planning director or other staff must inform applicants if their development proposal is referred to TRC review, even if it is not explicitly listed. And it also changes the term subdivider to applicant or authorized agent to allow for more broad development types. So this is something that's kind of perplexed me for the past few months, is if you look at the current language on the technical review committee, it really doesn't inform a citizen or a developer as to which types of development have to go before the TRC. I don't think it's good policy to be vague, and I also think that state law requires we be more specific. So we've itemized some, listed out some developments there that would have to go before TRC, which is really common standard practice now. We just list them and make it clear. And then anything that's not listed, you know, if somebody wanted to build an outdoor amphitheater or something, or any type of development that typically requires a combination of planning review, environmental health review, fire marshal review, NCDOT review, where you have multiple entities that review, those are the types of things that go before the technical review committee. So we owe it to the developer in those instances, if it's not specifically listed here, I say developer or property owner, you know, citizen. If it's not specifically listed here, we would take the responsibility of explaining to them why it must go before TRC. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
This is really not just a quick question. Are there term limits for historic properties and for Board of Adjustments, or are they, how does their terms work?
Yeah, I'm not sure about HPC, but Board of Adjustment, there's a required 3-year term, but in the initial appointment, the commissioners, in any jurisdiction, and this is the case in Alamance, 2 members are appointed for 2-year terms and the other 3 are appointed for 3-year terms. And that's so that not everybody's terms expire simultaneously.
But they can continue just every, after 3 years to reapply,
That's
and reapply, and reapply. There's no like term limits for the planning department. For the planning board, we can only serve 2 terms and then,
Yeah, you're correct.
okay, just want to be sure I understood.
Yeah.
And on the HPC that does not have term limits.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
And I'll say too that, the Board of Adjustment, as of right now, had a training session. They haven't officially had any meetings. But at their first official meeting, they are going to adopt, or at least attempt to adopt, the rules of procedure. So if they choose to impose term limits on themselves through the rules of procedure, I think that they could do that. But as of right now, there's no term limits.
Okay.
But there is a specific 2-year term.
Once somebody gets on it, they're more or less there till they want to.
Well, at the expiration of their 3-year term, they've got to be reappointed by the county commissioners. So ultimately, the discretion of appointing individuals to any of these boards lies with the county commissioners.
The TRC, and as detailed out here, what the TRC would be up to look at. looks like everything that's in the UDO subsections in 6, except for solar and heavy industrial, or would that follow under other non-residential development?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So Ian and I talked a little bit about this. So the solar farm regulations and the, excuse me, high impact development regulations already kind of have a spelled out procedure where, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong on this. I think final approval has to come from the commissioners, right?
Yeah, from the commissioners.
Yeah,
then I
and
think it
so-
comes to the planning board regardless, right? All the HIDOs come to the planning board regardless.
Okay. And so he did not recall any, and when we looked through central permitting, we didn't find any, HIDO proposals that went before TRC. I could be wrong. I'm still the new guy here. Do you guys recall any TRC meetings? So basically, we thought that since those already had their procedures of coming before the commissioners, that it wasn't necessary to require them to also go before TRC.
Yes, and if that was before, because I know before it goes to the commissioner, it comes to the planning board, all right? If it should go to the TRC to work out any mix or before it came to the planning board, I don't know. Maybe it's redundant.
It's a good question.
Anybody have any opinions?
Well, some of those things, maybe another set of eyes looking at them is not the worst thing that could happen. Especially in HIDO type projects. I mean, just,
Yeah, I like how you described that out. You listed it out. Just didn't know if looking through the sections, that's solar and heavy industrial, those were the only ones that are missing, not unless you consider under non-residential developments. And then, and I know we don't have, our UDO does not cover any commercial construction. That goes directly to you and then it goes to the TRC. That's right.
Any commercial?
Yes.
I don't know about any commercial.
Okay.
Generally, from my understanding, the reviews that require multiple regulatory authority approval is kind of the main triggering mechanism, right? So as I mentioned, us and environmental health and building inspections and the fire marshal, and maybe NCDOT.
Generally speaking, most commercial does fall into that. But there are a couple instances where it may not, but most does, that they go to tier two.
Yeah, like, let's say there's an old existing warehouse that is already built. Somebody wants to gut it and turn it into a paintball arena, right? I mean, I don't think we have any review over that at all from the planning department.
But if Walmart wanted to open up a distribution center down on 49, over by his farm,
Yeah,
who looks at that?
that's the type of thing I think would definitely come before TRC.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would fall
2.6
under that
indicates
other non-resident.
non-residential developments. I think.
Right.
And
And
again,
again-
say about HIDO, if I can interject, let's try to keep my mouth shut on these things, but TRC is generally intended to review some of the technical specifics of projects. How wide are the roads? Are you complying with fire code? I'll call them ticky-tacky things. They're important, but these sort of details. When you're reviewing a HIDO or something like that, sending it to TRC first is a little cart before the horse. I mean, you've got some big decisions like, are we going to allow this and things like that, which it would just be a little silly to go TRC and telling them how wide their cul-de-sac needs to be, when you don't even know if you're gonna let them.
I understand. I see what you mean. Okay.
That's all I'm gonna say.
Well, thank you.
Rest of the night, that's it.
That's helpful, but it gives me an understanding of why you wouldn't do that.
2.1.14. I don't know if you just missed that governing board or if you intended to do that.
Repeat that for me if you don't mind,
Two
please.
point one, section 4. 2.11.
Get back that way.
Ah, okay, yep.
2.1 where?
2.114.
Oh, okay.
Ivy,
Gotcha.
Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you for catching that. I really appreciate it.
it's 4, but sometimes it's easier to,
Probably down on B2.
Is it in V2?
Yeah.
yeah.
Is it in V2? It is in V2.
It's 4.
Oh my gosh. I should have
Otherwise,
done
that was
a,
5.
should have done a function search for, governing board.
Oh.
Board of Commissioners.
Yeah, and please don't be shy about flagging those because we've noticed punctuation errors, we've noticed misspellings. We've noticed things that, the spacing is off. I mean, that's the type of thing too that I want to correct as we do our work here.
So I'm guessing that our charge this month, as it was last month, is to take this now and read through it, mark it up. And this is gonna be our opening old business discussion next month before we jump over into 3.
That's correct, yeah.
Put my question.
So if you go back through this
Or
and you,
mustard smear.
anything between now and March, and you look through here and you flag it and you want to bring it back up, or you have more detailed questions or anything like that, please feel free to do that. And then as soon as we get out the agenda packets and you want to start digging into Article 3, prepare those questions and we'll tackle them at the next meeting.
Okay,
Now, let me ask a question here.
absolutely.
Since you got me on this. On 262, about the scheduled meetings, the second and fourth Thursday of each month.
Mhm.
Is these times to be set or should the time be in these?
The specific time in the morning, the specific time of day.
Are they supposed to be, is the time supposed to be set?
9:30.
So should that be in here?
It's a good question. Are there,
You know what? I got a thought on it. If you put in here that we meet the second and fourth Thursdays at 9:30. And you have to make a change from that, it's gonna be a legitimate change that has to be made.
Mhm.
If it's the second and fourth Thursdays and something comes up and it needs to be at 10 or 10:30 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, not quite as big a deal, I wouldn't think.
yeah, you're exactly right. Even a change as small as the time of a meeting for it to be in the UDO would have to go through a public hearing process to change ultimately.
You have,
In other words, it'd be easier in the long run to not put the actual meeting time down.
you have more flexibility.
Yeah, the TRC meets at 9:30
Right.
mostly. But since it's not carved in stone, if it needs to be 10 or 2 or something like that, it could be.
But you expect me to be there at 9:30 on the second, fourth Thursday.
Only if I'm not.
Well, I'm gonna come see what you do.
Today would have been a great day to observe.
Oh, was it today?
Uh-huh.
I didn't know that you did post him.
And for that.
It says right there,
Yeah, you're supposed to tell me.
Yeah.
it says right there, second and fourth.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that overnight.
But for the record, we didn't have a TRC meeting this morning because there was nothing on the agenda.
We didn't miss a thing.
We didn't miss a thing.
We didn't
And we
miss.
just, now you said we're just advisors to the company.
Nope.
You said
We are the liaison from the TRC to this board.
Okay,
And it would be great if they met and we sat in on the meeting and then come back over here and shared with the planning board what was going on,
What went
because
on.
that's what a liaison is supposed to do.
okay, we liaison, okay. I'm
That's a
still
good,
learning.
good observation.
Mhm. There have been some questions asked and answered, but that is not the job of the liaison. It is only to come back and share with this board what's going on over there, if they need to.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. County Attorney, please correct me when I get off track.
No, that sounds right to me. You should liaise.
use on it.
Correct.
Okay, so we've got our marching orders on Article 2, right?
Got homework.
Has anybody got any questions about that before
Oh,
we
I'm
move
gonna
on?
give, I got a lot of homework lined up for you guys this year.
Mm. Yeah, you're a tough taskmaster. Yeah.
All right,
But it's an open book test and you can ask me any questions you want.
That's great.
so you want to give a report on the subcommittee?
Oh, I can, sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So we met, that was, Tuesday afternoon at 4,
Mhm.
right? So the plan is still on track to make a formal recommendation in March, right?
Mhm.
And I think that the board was, or the subcommittee was narrowing down on a couple of ideas related to a lot size minimum standard and an option for cluster subdivisions throughout the county. I'm not gonna say any more than that. I'll leave it to you if you want to say more than that, but I think that's a decent summary.
Okay. So you've heard two variations of the update. You want to add anything to it that we got to cover?
No, I mean, we're just trying to be thorough and, make sure we are fair about what change, if any, that we make has a reasonable merit, I don't want anybody to get the idea we're just gonna just decide something because we like it or don't like it. That's not the intent or not the idea. The idea is to do something that's the right way to do something and something that would be good for the county in terms of what the future of the county would look like, development wise and growth wise, and that's all I've got to say.
Dare I ask him?
I got a question.
Well, hold on a second. You want to say anything?
Well, I'm just saying, what Vaughn says that, I think we've made a lot of discussion about, what's best for the county, what's best for the citizens, and how it's gonna lead into protecting us in the future.
That's a yes. Now for your question.
On the cluster subdivisions. Always been my impression on the cluster subdivisions especially when we were talking about the small area plan and zoning and all that in previous discussions, previous years, was that the cluster developments would have more green space, more open areas or whatever, but the lot sizes are smaller. Now, is that still a direction that you are taking that?
In two different perspectives, as a matter of fact. One is from the wildlife perspective, because they've got a plan that they're using. And the other one is just to protect in other words, if let me change it. I've been using this 100-acre number.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna lose 100 acres of farmland to development, and you want to put all the houses here and still have some open space, fine. Put them all here, have the open space. As opposed to putting a house here and a house here and a house. Because you make the case either way. A house sitting on 3 or 4 or 5 acres looks more rural than a house 22 feet from a house and then 22 more feet another house, which, here again, that's the minimum spacing.
Right.
Was anybody gonna do that? Well, might not be doing it now, but you wait long enough, it will.
Right, so one of the area of discussion that we're having about lot sizes is septics.
Mhm.
How do they then meet septic and the concerns about how many holes are punched in a small area?
Well, that nobody's concerned about that is little concerning to some. But there are some others that, they just don't care. Do you wanna weigh in on this, or do you wanna, Mr. Health Department, or do you wanna not?
I would, I'm not sure what the question would be.
Wouldn't most clusters be on community?
Yeah, well, that's what I was thinking about offering. When we get down to the below 30,000 square foot and above 20,000 square foot minimum lot size that we presently have, you have to do a community well.
Mhm.
Whereas one well drilled with increased required setbacks to septic systems, property lines, residences, and everything. And then that well is also permitted by the county, but it's governed and also permitted, and specifications are brought forward by the state. And it has to meet more stringent construction requirements as well. And then that feeds, and it also has minimum quantity standards as well, but it feeds all the houses. And then it also has to be monitored and tested at a regular frequency as well.
No, those are kind of some standards that are already in place.
Yes.
within the subdivision.
Yeah, it's within our ordinance.
And it's the regulations.
Okay.
I did do a little bit of research on this cluster thing and, I went on there and I seen several different ones and the way I looked at some of these, it's a really a good idea, but the way is, I think this one was in Maine. These lot sizes remained at, at 2 acres. And it was, I don't know who would be responsible for designing these things, but in this cluster area, it was like, development, it was like 6 or 7 houses here. And then the road goes through with woods and stuff, and it divided the other 6 or 7. And it went around like that through that cluster area. If we would do something similar to that, rather than putting 15 houses in one little spot, I think that would do what we're looking to do. And as we talked in our meeting and everything, the one thing that we're not looking at from my perspective as, conservation and being forced as a farmer is this impervious surface area. We've been asked to extend our buffers from 50 foot to 100 foot so that, and it's all about just meeting the requirements down the river. And if we do this 2 acres, then each one of those houses could carry their own pervious, however how you say it, pervious surface, the rule, have enough area to store its water on its own. And even in others, will be a retention pond or something of that effect too. But each one of them could carry their own.
Welcome to the
And we wouldn't have to ask farmers to, But anyhow, don't want to get too deep in the weeds here.
Yeah, I love community stuff.
No, I think it's good points, and I think that, what comes to mind, in terms of the open space requirement is you can build features into the ordinance that account for those types of things. So if it's a simple ratio of 25 or 30 or 40 or 50% of the total area has to be reserved for open space with an option to split up the clusters, then the design can flow from there,
Y'all get a chance to Google cluster developments and look at those different scenarios and pictures that they've got on there. That one is really, to me, man, that looked good because the road goes this way and it goes that way. You got a clump tree here and a clump trees there but we can talk about this, but.
Okay. So, got any announcements?
Super Bowl's on Sunday,
Yep, something coming up on
in case
Wednesday,
you needed to know that.
and then Friday in a
Valentine's
couple of
Day
weeks is
coming
something
up.
else coming up that don't mean nothing to many people, but it means something to somebody. My wife will be 29
Fantastic.
on the 23rd.
happy birthday. Shall we sing?
not till the 23rd.
When's your day? 21? What's your day? 23rd?
Yes, sir.
Mine 21st. I say all good people are born in that.
And he's older than you.
Yeah.
His birthday's 2 days before yours.
I'll just mention one small thing. So obviously we had two members absent tonight regarding their oath of office. I'm gonna, give them an email exchange with the county clerk. If they can stop by within the next month and just have the oath administered that way, then odds are it will not be on the March agenda. But if they choose to come and have Mr. Bear, Mayor Bear, administer the oath, then you can expect that to be at the top of the agenda. We'll dispense with it quickly like we did tonight. That's all I've got.
You willing to do that if they wanna do it next month? Okay,
Outstanding.
all right. Well, all hearts and minds clear.
Yeah.
Make a motion with you.
I move. We
Okay.
second that
Motion
emotion.
is second. See you next time.
I see you got some books there. I like that.
I think I got two of them. Got one over here, just in case, I reckon.
In case you didn't recall.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's good to know.
Usually
One thing I
revised
thought
in
the
Greek.
readers I thought
Uh-huh.
is-
You got